Hi, I'm Tim Spelt, one of the effects leads.
I'm Mike Ringus, the materials supervisor.
I'm Kevin Thompson, the technical lead layout artist.
My name is Rob Cardone, supervisor of the layout department.
Hi, I'm Jim Bresnahan, a supervising animator.
I'm Matt Simmons, the animation technical lead.
I'm Dave Esnelt, the lighting supervisor.
So here we are in the world of robots.
This was an interesting shot because it went through a lot of planning. In the early phases of production, the set wasn't really assembled in place. There was sections of buildings that had to be planned out because we needed to know which interiors we wanted to see based on the gags that we wanted to see early on in the camera move coming off the water tower, and actually the placement of the water tower and where it fell against City Hall and the storefronts. It all needed to be worked out up front based on a set that really wasn't there yet. And it went through many iterations and much planning all the way through the layout and animation phase.
Yeah, in the opening town shots, you definitely have to pay a lot of attention to all the signs in the windows. There's a lot of great gags and all the stuff that we added in there.
But it's okay. Making the babies.
Yeah, I've always found that these traveling sequences where you're moving around a lot are some of the hardest to coordinate.
In this particular shot, many of the parts that are falling, the original intention was that the parts were going to actually fall into place and make the logo, the robot's logo. That proved to be a pretty tricky thing to try and accomplish. But the parts that you do see falling are actually the parts of the baby disassembled with a few nuts and bolts added.
How did you guys do the slow-mo?
Well, I think we just went ahead and just stretched out the animation curves, basically. I think James Campbell, one of our animators, took a couple of weeks to get that right, and he basically just animated it in slow motion.
So he did it in fast motion, then slowed it down afterwards?
No, he animated it. He animated it at that speed.
Okay.
Look at him, Rodney Copperbottom. He's got your mom's eyes. And
This is our over-affected lighting to get the really cute baby look.
Yeah, those eye lights.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time developing the eyes for the characters, trying to get something that looked appealing. Initially, we had a lot of designs that looked like camera lenses, and that stuff was really terrifying. We realized that wasn't very attractive at all, so we went with more of a classic flashlight setup. So all of the eyes of the characters actually have a little bulb that represents their iris, and you'll notice that there's a little bit of light being cast from behind their iris, so that as they look around, the light is changing inside of their eyes.
I was like that, the fireplace back there, the heating element.
Yeah, that's
Really
just
cute.
a simple glowy material, but I think lighting really added the effect that makes it look warm.
Hi, son.
Are those my big boy parts?
They sure are.
Wow! They're not shiny.
I'm pretty sure there's one cardboard box being used throughout the entire movie with just different textures on it.
Yeah, and it's always empty every single time. There's never anything in it.
And it might be the only organic thing in the whole movie.
There's paper, too.
Oh, right.
Metal paper.
Sorry.
Right. But the paper's metal.
Metallic confetti.
Yeah.
Yeah, speaking of confetti, there's a whole bunch of it about to come down.
Yeah.
That was actually one or two of our guys worked for a couple weeks on that, the effects. If I remember right, it's just a couple animation cycles of confetti repeated over and over.
This moment here, I remember Chris Wedge stopping once in Sweatbox and saying, "That's the weirdest thing I've ever seen. An inflatable balloon of a robot in a braid passing by."
You'll note the water tower has traveled to the other side of the street for this particular composition.
Tim, with the confetti, that was in these falling shots where it hits the ground. You guys ran that simulation in reverse?
No, it was, I believe all hand animated, and we just figured out how far it had to fall for any shot. We just did a few hand animation and adjusted it.
This shot here, the animator used reference of one of our story guy's kids doing what he called his booty dance on the chair. So that bit of action was based on some reference of a 7-year-old boy actually doing that animation.
these TV show shots, there was a special camera reticle made that actually had the frame of the TV screen actually affixed right onto the camera so that we could actually shoot through that and see the TV show being shot within the set of Big World's workshop and the exterior of the Big World building, and the shots that we wanted to show it through the TV screen, it was equipped with that reticle.
Coming up here, you're going to see the original Rodney design as a cameo character. This guy right here, who we called Greg Jr.
The green guy.
The green guy.
Yeah, and that effect was lifted from an early test as well.
Yeah.
The whole gag. I think that was one of the first things we ever rendered for robots was that test.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, folks, let's get to invent.
So the fountain shows up in the background there over and over. That was a pretty big challenge for us. And then the little puff of smoke there, that took a long time, even though it's only on screen for a little bit.
Look, it's the vibrancy pass.
This is the vibrancy pass. This was not as originally animated. We went back in, we punched it up with all these background characters.
This stuff is great.
Especially the guy swimming through the air with the balloons on his back.
And that was quite a challenge for lighting because we tried to keep all the renders that we had originally, and we just tried to slug those guys in. And of course, there was tons of problems trying to get them to work without re-rendering the whole shot.
There's a great time passing sort of element to all of the shots of Rodney's bedroom too. You'll notice that as he gets older, he has different posters and different toys and things lying around in his room.
On his bed in the background, in some of the later shots, I think you could see his 5-year-old upgrades back there on the bed. See him to the left behind the drill press.
Yeah, we see him.
Hi.
These are your 12-year-old parts. They're
Hand-me-downs. I know, Dad.
Oh man, we had a lot of arguments over that pot. We had two versions of the pot, one that was stainless steel and one that was a painted version. And nobody could decide which one they wanted until we actually did it. And once the brushed steel materials were on there, that finally settled the argument because the thing looks so good.
Rodney can really change his clothes fast there. Threw his chest off, got that rope going real quick.
So this is like a material showpiece right here.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. The cool thing about the diner, well, really the cool thing about everything in robots from the materials perspective is that almost every surface in the movie is reflective. And that means that all the metals and all the paints and everything are reflecting the environments and the characters around them. Our proprietary renderer does a really good job of recreating that realistically. And so we went to town with the diner, and every single wall in the diner is completely reflective. So everything that Rodney and his dad here are doing is being reflected in everything else in the scene, the walls and even the plates.
And while that's super cool for materials, that's super challenging for lighting.
Same time, something really simple you probably wouldn't think of, but just as he starts moving all these plates around, like just tracking how many plates are where and everything throughout the sequence was quite challenging. There was over like hundreds and hundreds of plates that Washbot had to put all over in all the places.
Another challenge that came up in the sequence was, as we're showing the Watchbot work faster and faster, someone came up with the idea of, well, let's do a time-lapse shot, as if from a, security camera or something stationed above. So we thought this shot would be impossible to pull off, and we cleared out 2 months in the schedule to animate it. But I think the animator turned it around actually in just 3 or 4 days. And if you watch closely, you'll see Rodney exit for a moment and come back. So you can make up your own story there about what happens.
He's going to the bathroom.
He's going to the bathroom. He pops out for a second and comes back.
Metal donut.
We thought.
Here it is.
And the entire thing's reflected in the ceiling light too. That's great.
What is that? Oh, my son made it. What's it doing?
So up here you see Mr. Gunk get covered with stuff. That was some of our early fluid work. I think we got a little better at it later on in the movie.
Stop it. No!
And as the Watchbot is tearing the entire kitchen apart, that was basically the animators doing the same, just grabbing at any piece of geo and hand animating it all and tearing the stuff apart. And we had to go back in modeling and materials and fill in the blanks on some of the pieces that revealed all sorts of glitches as they ripped the whole kitchen apart.
Yeah, but the time in Mr. Gunk's nose was correct, so that saves the whole day.
One way.
There you are. I told you I'd
Okay,
find him.
coming up here, we have a little Easter egg in the background. If you watch the ticket taker guy in the window, he's gonna right there. Okay, something on his finger.
Yeah, the really challenging part about this sequence and lighting was that the director wanted everything to be really dark to sell the night, but the studio wanted to make sure that we could see the characters well enough, so we had to do a real balancing act of darkness, but like keeping it happy and not too scary.
The lighting and the materials and the design of the sequence is my favorite.
Yeah, the whole Rivettown that Rodney and his parents live in, from a materials standpoint, we wanted to do things that looked old and were aged, with chipped paint and corrosion, but we wanted to make sure everything looked clean, that it was a well cared for place, and that's sort of the theme that we followed with all the people and the buildings and the environment in Rivettown.
So, I got refitted to be a dishwasher. Now, I'm not complaining, but I've always said to myself,
Yeah, one of the things we were worried about in the beginning of production was the sense of scale, like these giant screw heads in back. We were wondering if they would confuse the way people saw things because they're used to seeing those things small. But I think the materials actually did a great job of making them seem large, despite the fact that the design is small.
Yeah, we just imagined that they were actually oversized things and were cast from big, heavy materials. The other interesting thing about the materials here is that Rodney's color is basically a blend between his mom's and his dad's color.
So this steam here that's coming off was, I think, one of the most successful uses of a technique that effects and R&D work together to develop to do steam. There's a lot of steam in this movie. We got pretty good at it. This was actually one of the last steam shots that we polished. Effects ended up supervising the composites to make sure that everything went through correctly, and I think that really paid off.
This stuff is beautiful.
Yeah, especially when it looks soft right around here, and after it looks, the shading's great. Get a lot of sense of it.
I love the refraction in the window.
The window.
Yeah, I love that.
Me too.
We had to turn it down the first time because it distorted his dad's face. Yeah, you really get a sense of the volume of the steam there.
Yeah, those are great when it's coming off the smokestack. Or steam stack.
Goodbye, Rivettown.
This was something that was actually added in production late to help tell Rodney's journey about him actually going to the city before he just left Rivettown and was in the city right away. Yeah. I think this really tells the story a lot better.
Yeah, those clouds are painted, hand-painted.
Rob, you told me this was a Penn Station inspired train station?
Much of the design was inspired by Penn Station.
Yeah,
The original Penn
original
Station.
Penn Station.
Yeah.
This is your first introduction to what we call the Frankenbots. Well, I actually saw them earlier, but this is the big one. And all these guys walking in back are built out of a library of parts and automatically assigned parts. Some of them are controlled by a crowd system that Effects was responsible for, but a large number of them were all hand animated by Matt Simmons and his crew.
You'll see a lot of their body parts show up as buildings in the backgrounds of other scenes.
Yeah, we reused a lot of the parts.
This section of Fender's interaction with Rodney was actually retrofitted into the sequence where Rodney arrives at Robot City. So we had to really find a place within the set and within the sequence to fit it in seamlessly, so you would buy that it actually happened in real space. It was a challenge. If you note the name Silverman on the tag on the right, he was actually a story guy, a writer that helped.
Yeah, we have
David Silverman.
Yeah, that's right. We have a couple of little interesting things in the background coming up. So just keep your eyes open. You'll see Sidbot make it. Well, let's watch this gag first, which actually is one of the better gags in the sequence.
excuse me, how do I get to Big Welding?
Now, coming up in the background, you'll see a robotic version of one of our characters from Ice Age, Sid. He's in there somewhere.
Right in the middle. Still think Effects did an amazing job with filling this place up and having it really feel like a busy train station.
Yeah, the crowd systems. They really paid off for these, but
you get some really interesting bots like that little guy. You'll see him again in the lower right.
With the huge head?
Yeah, there he is. That's great. There's another one.
We're also doing all the materials procedurally across all of the Frankenbots, so every single one of them has different chipped paint on them and subtly random and varied color across every single one.
Yeah, we depended on that more than changes in actual geometry to add the variety. So we just altered the scaling and the materials. For the base shapes, I think there's a library of maybe 30 parts.
This whole contraption, the whole crosstown apparatus that they use to travel throughout Robot City, just an amazing semblance of Bill Joyce designs and many people brainstorming all
Took
these
a lot of work. Yeah.
Rube Goldberg ideas and contraptions, and it just really came out fantastic in the end.
It's probably the one thing that we'd never done before, and we're probably most worried about is having such a huge collection of geometry for the entire city.
Yeah.
Everything in this shot, for example, is real. That's all geometry. There's no painting going on.
That was the assembly department who was
Yeah.
responsible for all that.
That was one of the things, too, that I remember Chris Wedge saying to me a lot, was that he wanted the city to always feel like it was moving. So this sequence is a pretty good showcase of that, because all of the gears and all the people in the background, the cars, and all the main action on the screen is just constantly moving, and just it makes it feel like it's alive, even though it's all full of metal.
Yeah. You guys went to a lot of effort to put characters moving at the edges of the
Right.
walkways and stuff.
Yeah, even for like 13 frames, I believe was one of the shots.
Yeah, sometimes it seems silly, but looking back on it, it really helps.
To me, the one thing is that in 290, you'll see later, the streets are literally full of rush hour traffic. That was the one thing about this sequence. Like, the crowds and everything are in there, but it's a slow day in Robot City on the streets. If you
It's
look
Sunday,
at the cars.
maybe, right? It's
like a
like
Sunday
Sunday
Probably early Sunday morning. People are out for their constitutionals.
This whole sequence had to be broken up into about 10 massive sets that were all meticulously set dressed by assembly, first on a sequence level and then even on individual shot level.
It was an incredible tracking challenge to make sure if you're seeing one set from another set, make sure you're including that geometry. Just from a continuity standpoint, the challenge was tremendous. Animation did a great job with this section, the feel of the camera.
Yeah.
That was a big effects animation collaboration, getting the rolling balls, which were effects.
But
And
some
then
of those, a lot of the balls were effects. It's right. Just
Yeah.
a few are hand animated.
a few were, we just used the hand animated ones as guides.
Those people are walking really close to that edge. They don't want to step off of that.
Thrill seekers.
Oh, they brought it back.
Also, too, some people may have seen the sequence, but this was all done with the knitting lady before their initial time, and she unfortunately didn't make the film because Fender then would be set to ride with Rodney throughout the whole crosstown.
Does she show up at all?
She's in the first shot,
Yeah,
sitting
the-
on the bench feeding the pigeons.
Right.
Right.
She actually is in some of the shots in this sequence when the ball is really small, and we decided that it wasn't worth it to just change it. Some other times we actually just color corrected the pink to red, and that was enough to where you don't really notice unless you look really close.
So she's still in there in a couple
So she's
shots.
actually in there
Just
in a couple
colorized.
shots.
Yeah.
In this particular shot, Rodney is about 50 feet off the ground and set back about 100 yards from where he actually lands in the little pod.
That's a Steve Martino original font there.
Yeah. Yeah, the art director made the font.
Sorry, Hey, you're Tim from the TV show!
That's me.
Well, hey, Tim. Who closed the gate?
Well-known fact is we shot reference of Frankenstein hand puppet owned by one of the modelers to do reference for a lot of the scenes here. One other interesting thing, if I could say, is that this scene was reanimated after we had a little epiphany kind of early on in the film that we can bend metal in the characters' faces. And if you watch Rodney closely in some of the close-ups, you'll see that, it doesn't really detract from the believability of the robots. So,
Yeah, we were really worried that the textures and things would stretch and make it look a little bit too rubbery, but in the end, the balance between the materials and the animation, we realized that it was more important to get Rodney to be able to
Expressive.
emote rather than look perfectly metallic.
Wasn't there like a little floor-to-wall spacer piece that kept disappearing
Yeah, this one.
throughout
Yeah.
production?
Yeah.
Right there along the baseboard
Just
there.
that little seam every single time too. Even when we go back to the gate later in other sequences,
That was
there's
so
a lot of
annoying.
wrestling with that piece of Geo.
I hated that Geo.
So this is one of your materials' first big circular pattern thing.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You
This
guys-
is definitely a showpiece for how we develop the high-end look, this brushed steel and this sort of soft satin metal. We use a lot of what we call iridescence, so there's a lot of sort of rainbow colors introduced in very subtle ways, and a lot of sort of sandblasted metal as well, all of which we're doing with true ray-traced diffuse reflections.
That's a great effect.
freeze frame on the worst possible unflattering facial expression.
Cross old-fashioned values like that anymore,
So that guy sitting there, his name is Ledbetter. And there used to be a whole sequence that showed him what happens to a guy who gets eliminated from the inner circle of executives. He would get smashed into a cog and drop down into the inner workings of the city, become a minority in the plan of Robot City.
But now he just drops through the floor.
Right.
It's a lot quicker.
We had hoped that in the original design all the executives would be exactly the same, but between Chris Wedge and Bill Joyce, they decided they wanted every one of them different. So all the executives are of different proportions and have subtly different materials.
I remember this was a pretty tricky lighting problem to get him to show up against the background, right? Because he's pretty much the same color as the background.
Yeah, well, especially with the materials that are on Ratchet, to get a convincing projector image on him with all of the brushed metal and stuff, we had to do a lot of fakery to make it seem like he's really there when he's not really there.
I gotta tell you, I think it's brilliant, but honestly...
That whole little commercial thing, I think that took like about 10 weeks for the people in Paint to put together because they kept redesigning and changing it over and over again.
The Hudsucker Proxy was a big influence for that boardroom sequence.
Don't look down.
This little bit here was one of the last things done for the movie, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That background plate of the exterior of the Big World building is used about 3 times in the film as a frozen plate, one of which is flipped for an effect where the Watchbot or the Wonderbot gets kicked out of the ceiling, out of the skylight of the building.
Chills.
Thank you.
But
But?
I'm just wondering, why would robots buy new upgrades if
Yeah, the
parts...
spare parts look like buildings.
Yeah.
Because they are.
The great thing about all these execs is that they all have really intricate faces, and we thought at first they were too minimal to work with, but a lot of the animators got a lot of great expression out of their eyes and just all their body poses, and you'll see some of them actually dancing later on. It's pretty funny.
Their glasses are great, the refraction.
Yeah, that's
reflection
something
off
that
them.
we sort of take for granted. We're able to just plug in what the right numbers would be for true glass, and we get all of those refractions and things virtually for free.
Yes, if a 25-hour render is free.
Yeah, well, in materials we don't have to worry about the render times too much. We let lighting worry about that.
I like Ratchet's eyebrows in that shot. He's fluttering away from the Wonderbot.
I am a young inventor, and it has been my dream to come to Robot City and...
The dial on Rodney's chest has a little mention of Blue Sky. It has the Blue Sky logo on it. And we even did a little logo for CGI Studio, our proprietary renderer that's on there too.
You could probably only read it in IMAX.
I don't know if you could ever notice it. You can see just a hint of it there.
You see a blue line.
Yeah, it's the Blue Sky logo.
The old logo.
Yeah.
There's that frozen frame, by the way. That
Yeah,
L
same
frame.
shot, right?
I think Rodney's original design was based on Chris Wedge's grandfather's Evinrude outboard motor.
Yeah. Right.
This is a good effects piece right here.
This stuff is fantastic.
Yeah, this was one of the final effects in the movie. Again, we put there was a lot of design thought into which hairdo should be done. And the technique was actually pretty simple. We just had the animators animate the shapes and then came up with a clever way to fill it in.
And of
put a
course,
little follow-through on.
the idea for the gag was based on that kind of classic children's toy, the Wooly Willy.
Wooly Willy.
Yeah, I had Willy props all over my desk for about a month and a half.
And then we actually got a gift from Fox that was a Rodney Wooly toy.
Yeah.
Full circle.
It all came full circle.
This actually, what's funny is that these frames actually were rendered fairly early in the movie, and the stuff on his face doesn't match the stuff at the.
Yeah,
earlier.
I think
it's always bothered me.
the city is also because it was early on in the film. I think the city was also a little less populated. We populated it more and more as we got better at putting things in the background.
Yeah.
I believe this whole running down the street definitely repeats sections of the set.
Oh yeah.
More than 2 or 3 times.
Oh yeah.
Definitely. And a lot of these buildings you get a good shot of here are based off of Cappy. They're a lot of Cappy's body parts turned into buildings.
So that Steam was mostly done in commercially available software, and then the data was imported into our own renderer, re-rendered with our own techniques. But the animation was done mostly in Maya for that one.
The original concept of that billboard was that Rodney was going to be coming through and knocking out one of Bigweld's teeth, and everyone agreed that the butt was much more hilarious.
Correctly.
This,
Agreed.
this was quite a drop down was quite a shot, huh?
Oh,
It's
It's
like
actually-
4 complete sets sewn together with pipes.
It's a reuse of 2 sets actually in the same shot.
Actually, all of these minions, as we like to call them, here in all these shots were all hand animated in place for every one of them.
Yeah. And all the sparks you see are generated using a tool that one of the effects artists developed. Actually, a couple of them together. That use the super bright pixels, where our renderer can render things over white, and then we add a flare to it, which looks really good.
Madame Gasket's harness was an afterthought, wasn't it?
Don't ask me what it's connected to.
It can go anywhere, though.
She needed a way to get around, and that proved to be very successful.
Mm-hmm.
So Matt, all the guys in these group shots were hand animated?
Yeah, every single one of them.
Man, all of these guys?
All to the beat, too, so...
Yeah.
And this sequence was changed around quite a few times.
Wow.
And every single time we had to move and shift them so they'd always be hitting on the beat.
I always thought Ratchet looked best here because his high-end materials, in contrast to sort of the nastiness of this entire set, really, I always just thought had a cool contrast.
It's real garish lighting.
Yeah.
Yeah, we found what works best to define Ratchet is to almost never use white light on him. There's always a mix of some pink and some blue coming from opposite directions, and then you get the kind of orange reflection from all the flames, and when that all mixes together with the kind of the brushed materials, it gives him a really good look and pops him off the background.
And would you say that Gasket's bonnet is probably the most consistent, continuous effect in the movie? I mean,
I was about to say, yeah.
Difficult, too, to handle.
Consistently problematic.
Hard for everyone to deal with, without a doubt.
It's got a lot of screen time, though.
Yeah.
This big pull-out shot, set up a kind of a rig with all the belts so you could kind of make the camera go from any arrangement, pull the rig around, and the belts would all shift or still maintain that pentagonal tunnel.
Oh, yeah?
That's cool.
Yeah.
And that was very helpful when a note would come for the shot. That rig proved to be extremely useful whenever the shot would change, which was often.
Like most of that stuff requires a little bit of set-out time, but then hopefully it pays off at the end.
This is, I think, only the second or third sequence that we actually worked on in the movie. This was very early on.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You can tell by the missing materials up there in the background behind him.
Yeah, exactly. We didn't quite have the whole city fleshed out just yet.
Listen, if I seem to be getting smaller, it's because...
This particular set is used twice in that camera pan down through the city. When we follow the sweepers down into the city. The set is actually used twice in that shot.
I was like the tottering
And
barrels there.
Animators tend to shoot a lot of references. For this one, I actually walked around with a trash can on my foot, trying to run around, slipping all over the floor for some of the animators' reference.
Matt was the most willing to go to extremes for the animators for shooting references.
I love the bucket idea, too, because otherwise he'd be dancing around with a foot missing.
Yeah.
Right?
It's pretty
Which would be kinda
grotesque.
gross.
And we were just all in awe that these shots, when they came out of animation, we have one guy who just is really, really good at the physical stuff. And he did some amazing work here.
And all of those ball bearings are reflecting everything in the set.
Good thing.
It helps sell the shots.
Makes it look so unbelievable, though.
That little ballet sequence is another area where the animation repeats the same section of the set 3 or 4 times.
Right, the whole hallway is only 100 feet long or so.
Those are things you aren't supposed to say.
Yeah, that made it hard for effects because we couldn't just let the sim run all the way through. We had to back it up every time you go.
It works, though. You guys did a great job.
Don't even notice.
This right here, this was actually the very first sequence that we lit.
Right.
And then, of course, it got changed, and we had to update everything and do it again.
The material on that basket, that shopping cart.
Yeah, that's an early one, too. That's when
beautiful.
we really just, we had just developed the look for the rust and stuff, and we just went crazy with it.
It's really great.
I can never find parts of my size.
Lugnut's got a little chest emblem that has a bunch of information about Blue Sky. It's got a police guy's telephone number and address and everything on there.
All of our social security numbers. So
Right,
you look close.
Yeah, will you shut up, you neurotic nut?
Oh, I see on the brass.
Yeah, and that little plate on his chest.
Well, speak of the devil, here I come. Ow! Daddy!
Whoa! Check this out! Who would throw away such a cute
So this is an introduction to all the Rusties here, and this is some of the earlier animation that was done in production. So I think their Fender, in particular, I think got a little more expressive. He's expressive here, but if you talk to the animators on production, they'd say that this is an earlier. They could tell it was an earlier shot or an earlier sequence.
There was a second Wonderbot made, right, for the beat-up version?
He had a separate rig variation, either dented, kicked, or normal. This is kicked.
And and it's actually just a deformed version of the original, so our materials automatically update to chip and fill in dirt on all those areas. So even though he's freshly dented, you'll notice that his paint's all chipped up and he's got dirt in the crevices where his dents are.
I got good
The
news,
ceiling fan.
and I got bad news.
So Jack Hammer here is actually, his character design is based off of a character that we did for a Robots short that we had produced years and years ago in just an attempt to sort of get the look of what a Robots movie could look like. And fortunately, he made it back into the real Robots movie.
I think that short was from 1999, and you actually see some other pictures of him and his companion. I guess it was Vivian in Aunt Fan's house.
In Aunt Fan's house, that's right. Yeah.
A couple of hexagonal picture frames had that.
Is that a variation on Ratchet's torso, or is that not?
Yeah,
Looks like
it's derived from that.
Does it come in plus sizes?
Sure. Take a look at the new Big Weld Spring Collection. I can't afford that fancy stuff.
So I remember just sitting in on lighting rounds and that the brightly lit background through the window was a little bit of a problem for lighting.
Yeah, that stuff was pretty much totally faked in. There wasn't really an other side of the street originally built in there, so we just kind of pieced together some buildings and then we blew it out to try to make it look like, it's a little overexposed out there and hide the fact that there is no street and no sky and other things that should be there.
Oh, the calendar's got an image of a piece of junk we found at a junkyard. I don't know if you'll see it in another shot, but it's great. It's a dial with two little lights. It looks just like a face.
Oh yeah, I saw that on somebody's desk.
Yeah, Kawada had that on his desk for a while.
You have 2 washers, an S-spring, and some fast weld? I can fix you easy.
The force is strong with this one.
There's the background set pieces that we were never supposed to get close to.
Right.
This shot, I had many, many, many iterations that I'm sure Leo can attest to.
Yes.
Finally turned out really, really successful, though.
And it got shortened quite a bit.
Then it got cut in a third or whatever.
This particular sequence was the first sequence to go into production in layout, and the middle sequence to go into production, and the last sequence to go into production. It came in and ran its course for about 2 years in the layout department, because it's a pretty pivotal point. We actually meet Rodney and meet the Rusties and introduce them by name, and so it was an important thing to work out. So it took a while.
You'll notice with the lighting in this particular sequence, this is more of a magic hour thing, so the colors are much punchier and saturated. And originally, we actually had a time progression from the first shot to the last shot where it would get darker and redder. And so we figured it all out and did this equation to, and it worked perfectly. And then when we put it all together and showed it to Chris, and then we compared the first shot and the last shot, he's like, that changes too much. Just make it all the same.
That's the way it goes.
I lament the loss of the hacky sack bot that was originally
Yes.
in this sequence.
Yeah.
You'll notice later on in the film there's a robot, a blue robot that falls apart on the street. His name was Zinc, and this actually used to be his sequence. He had a big role in this sequence, and now he is no longer there.
That's right. This is his house. That's his house.
That was his
right?
house that they were sitting on the steps. So
The radiator house.
the radiator house.
Yeah,
Right?
I love that design.
Notice the moving gear. All right.
Background animation.
Look at
Excellent.
that. Seriously.
Now, One thing here is we're looking at a sequence where we didn't go back in and reanimate Rodney with his new, more flexible metal face. So if you want to see the contrast, take a look at his face here and how it's a little bit more limited.
This was the first sequence we worked in on the TD side, and it was a huge challenge when the assembly department started getting their tools going and started propagating all of these pots and pans and what we call the tchotchkes over in her living room. And Fan's got a huge collection of all sorts of little trinkets on the shelves, and it's a big nightmare trying to coordinate all that stuff and get it to look good. Probably some of the simplest modeling and materials in the movie are these little toys that she has on her shelves. Fortunately, we never get too close to them.
Are a lot of them buildings also, smaller
Yeah,
buildings?
yeah, there's a lot of buildings. She has a couple pieces of furniture that are just shrunk down buildings as well.
Shooting in this was insanely tight. I think it's maybe one of the tightest sets in the entire movie. She had to really open up the lenses, I think, on some of this stuff.
Yeah, she barely fits in there.
She didn't fit for a while, I remember early versions.
You can bunk with me. We'll ignore the gossip.
There's the photos from the old short.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there
right.
it is.
This shot right here was actually a total cheat. We actually put Rodney, when in that mirror shot, we put Rodney on the other side of the wall and cut a hole in the wall to render it all out correctly because it could not work at all in real life whatsoever.
Yeah, that was like 6 different layers that in no way related to reality.
Sorry.
You can see the images on the wall. The old robot short, the upper right.
On the pink frame, yeah.
Oh dear.
I'll get them.
Oh, look at it. Oh, now they're arm wrestling.
We never had that insert for the longest time. Somebody had the idea to actually show the arms wrestling.
Lighting in this sequence is beautiful too.
Yeah.
Yes, and there's some very, very subtle Rodney animation. So
just the way that swing is reacting to movement, really great.
Yeah, this was another lighting challenge because, again, it's like a dark sequence, but it's also supposed to feel intimate, yet the lighting is cool. So it's kind of important to try to, you had 2 things that don't really usually go together, so it was a challenge to try to make that work. And we actually had to change the lighting on Fender quite a bit because when the light gets too cool on him, he turns purple and he just looks totally funky.
We must have a lot of problems with this, with like the tire swings, chairs, being crazy scales and going through the walls and actually having the characters fit into them, and because that to me personally wouldn't be all that comfortable. But
Kind of a rough day, huh?
Kinda. My dad's probably sitting by the phone waiting for his brilliant...
So in this particular area, it was a really big challenge to try and find successful poses for Rodney and Fender so that they looked comfortable sitting in those tire swings. And I think Animation did a really spectacular job of really finding natural positions for them within the hammocks.
We had to go back in and redo some of Rodney's materials because the shots were so close up here. Stuff started to, everything needed a little bit more detail. So Rodney looks better in every sequence we did after this one.
Hey, Fender.
Hmm?
Yeah, baby. Let it rip.
Hey guys, come on, what are you, 3 years old? This is how a man does it.
You guys are...
Dave, there was a lot of back and forth about the daytime and nighttime lighting for this too, right?
Yeah, a little bit. This shot was originally very short, and then it got extended into like the world's longest fart joke. So we had to change the night lighting to like sell it a little bit more because before it was much darker. It only stayed night for a little bit, and then the sun came up, and it was mostly a gag about the guy in the little car. But then it turned into the dying street lamp.
That car is great.
Yeah, that was one of the first designs for the movie. They were going to make a lot more of those cars, but we ended up just doing variations of them, of the same 2.
Now this was a huge effects sequence right here with the pouring oil. We had one guy who really mastered doing the fluids, and then there was a lot of back and forth between animation and effects where we'd do it. They'd pour it, it wouldn't quite hit, or in some cases it would hit in the wrong area and look a little rude. And then we'd try again.
We really had to think about the 3D space, and animators sometimes aren't that rigorous about where they're posing things, but in this case we had to be.
Yeah, it's surprising how much you can get away with that's really 2D in a 3D world until you start trying to do physically based things like fluids.
Now say, money should be falling from the sky. Say,
So this features a lot of not Frankenbots but cheap bots, which are kind of our medium level quality robots.
Yeah, essentially they were specifically designed to be the extras of the film because we couldn't get everything we wanted to out of all of the Frankenbots. The solutions that was figuring out, they weren't always as appealing as the directors would like. So we had to design a bunch of them, and they ended up being called the cheap bots. High versions and low versions for people that were rich, essentially, and people that were like Rodney.
That guy is Zinc, by the way.
If you look around I'm not even sure if there are any Frankenbots in this, but a lot of the modelers actually modeled their own faces to put onto the Frankenbots.
Yeah, that's right. You'll see a lot of these robots, the exact same ones, show up in some of the high-end parts of Robot City, and they're the exact same models, but with high-end materials instead of the rusty chipped stuff.
Sorry, Mike. Speaking of showing up a lot of these same robots were back when Rodney was a little kid, and now back when he's grown up. And
That's right.
You have a
he's throughout
sense
the
of
whole
deja
movie.
vu
That's right.
watching the movie.
There was
There's about 12 guys
that green box guy
that went with him all
Right.
over the place.
Right.
The green box guy was showing up when he was a kid and when he was when Rodney's an adult, so we had to keep changing his color so it didn't look like the same robot was following Rodney around his whole life.
It was the orange box guy in the train station.
Was it orange? Yeah, that's right. We had to change him.
That Ant Fan shot was a bit of foreshadowing for things to come, I guess. She knocks them all down like dominoes.
Right.
So
yeah, remember, Matt, we were going to have a conversation about how to do that, and then you guys just went and did it yourselves?
Yeah.
This whole montage sequence went through several iterations of stuff, including a variety of gags. I think the bum knee bot was just before this, and the shingle bot.
Shingle bot.
You'll see him later. It's a robot it's basically got a roof with shingles, and a bum knee bot that's got a kind of hobo-looking kneecap. They show up later.
We can point him out later.
Favorite bot in the whole movie.
It's that box again.
He deserves a short of his own, actually, bum knee bot.
It's actually something interesting is when they stand Zinc up here, he's about 2 times the size he was when he fell apart. But who's really looking at that, right?
It's a miracle.
Yeah.
We'll be looking now.
So how'd you guys do the soft fuzz? I mean, that's the materials.
Yeah, it's actually fairly simple. There's just we used a little bit of an effect we call nap, which is something that gives surface sort of a suede feel to it. And originally it was going to be a very puffy cotton, but we decided to sort of downplay that and keep it very smooth.
This shot was a pretty big challenge because the camera needed to move up to Madame Gasket, and she needed to hide that hole in the wall and reveal it as she walked away. And her size and where the hole in the wall was and the camera move just all proved a huge challenge. And
we actually had a lot of challenges with Gasket and Ratchet together. Just any time between layout and in animation with her size of her whole head, and her bonnet was just so big compared to his body.
And their head heights, too. The relationships are... It's good that she kind of squashes in and out of up and down.
And if she moved too quickly, the smoke coming out of her head had to be cleaned up, and we had to put a lot of time into that. If she moved at a regular pace, it was fine. The rig we had in there, but
I love how some shots in the sequence you're looking through the smoke. There's light; it's being lit from behind. I thought that was really nice to see that.
That was all R&D. They did a great job with a technique called smog for doing the smoke and the steam.
This shot coming here where we look at everybody, that shot took so long. There were so many iterations and so many problems with it rendering and getting all the characters in there.
You mean that 8-frame shot?
Yeah, it was worth it. It was seriously one of the biggest headaches.
That exterior of the window shot, that right there, is actually Ant Fan's front door, isn't it?
It
seen from the outside, because there
Right.
was actually no exterior on Ant Fan's house, looking into the interior.
That's from my sister.
I recognize the handwriting.
That was a little agreement that they had worked out with the post office for the cancellation with the mailbox.
Oh yeah, and that character used to show up in another sequence as well, right?
That's right.
The mailbox.
Yeah, we redid the materials on him quite a few times. He really came out beautiful. As he got more important and then less important and then more important again.
In this next sequence, where they end up going to the ball, you can see that there's about 700 people in there, and those are all actually hand animated also, and hand placed per shot. How we actually accomplished that was by having 26 files together that were kind of pie wedges that went all the way around the huge circle. And we use those same files again in every single one of the dance shots later on in the sequence. So here's the whole thing all together.
Yeah, Matt and his crew did a great job with this, and it really pays off. Even though you're only seeing the background and little slices of the frame, it makes the sequence feel much bigger than it would without all that work they put into it.
Where are the trumpets? We were promised trumpets to announce the Count's arrival. Sorry, Your Grace. Beat me until you're happy.
The party lights here were a huge challenge for materials. We decided to actually try to cheat the effect of the lights on the tent, party tent walls there in the materials. So we have a cycle of over 100 different colored lights sort of passing over each other and passing through each other. But then once that got over to lighting, it proved to be a pretty heavy rig for them to deal with. And the lighting crew really ended up being the ones to take it home.
Yeah, well, you guys just provided us with a bunch of handles that we just would tweak until the director was happy.
Right.
For a long time, we would tweak them.
Thank you, Your Grace. Okay, let's split up.
This is actually interesting.
And
If
the
you
mustache
watch-
is gone.
Yeah, Rodney's mustache. Puts his hand over it, and then boom, it's gone. It's a lot easier that way.
Fender's materials are broken throughout this whole sequence. His brasses are much, much cleaner than they're supposed to be usually in the rest of the movie, but we decided in the end it kind of made it look like he had polished himself up for the party.
Right.
Subtle. Let's get to work.
A screwdriver, please. Shake, not stir.
Yes, sir.
Animating the tentacles on the Wonderbot here was it was a difficult challenge, and there really were only a few animators who were crazy enough and up to the challenge of making him dance here. It's just a lot of intricate work in this.
It's really well done.
Yeah.
You know, Cappy, it's nice that you can see me like this, away from work. See my more casual.
There was originally music, a different music under a lot of this too. So when I look at this, I always still imagine a different soundtrack in my head to it. It's still getting used to it.
Yeah, we had filmed a bunch of animators dancing together, and we did tons and tons of cycles for all of them. They actually all still made it onto all of the characters, because we needed a lot of them to fill this whole place up with
And we have a lot
all
of
the dancing.
we have a lot of reference footage that'll come back to haunt people at some point.
There's that fountain again.
The super sparkly fountain.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the super
It was
rich
over
version.
sparkled to get the love interest action going.
It's a little tough also to do a yellow fluid and not make it look disgusting. That's pretty challenging.
This microphone bot was the heaviest, most complicated model in the entire movie.
Yeah, we had to way over-render him because of that grill screen there, so it wouldn't get moire patterns.
Right, and the springs are unbelievably detailed. Modeling went back and fixed it up for us, but for a little while there, it was the biggest model in the whole movie.
The lighting in this sequence, the warm against the cool, it's just really awesome.
Yeah, this is the high drama lighting.
This was actually tricky because animation had to move around just some shapes that we wanted to be the directions of the light, but we couldn't even see them. And then lighting did their magic, so.
Yeah, we just took the timings from animation and put like the real spot cones in there, and it all came together really well.
You get a great example of what we call diffuse reflections throughout this whole sequence, where the floor is sort of a satiny reflective metal, and you can see as the reflections grow longer, they also get softer.
My darling, that is the cry of the deep doo-doo bird.
It's the problematic rose.
Yeah.
Take him for a drive.
What was the deal with the rose?
And bring me back his exact weight.
Just the materials on the rose like didn't come in forever, and it looked like really weird colors.
Oh, it was just all overdone. It was all too intense at first.
Yeah, it was like
I think,
super
right?
bright plastic.
Another thing about this sequence, it was chopped up a lot and reworked around, and we had consistently try and keep working with what we already had done and make everything match together, like even like with the crowds is concerned and where the characters are in order to get all the shots to work together.
There's a bit of discontinuity between where Ratchet is and where, just throughout that little section, they kind of pop around a little bit in front of the stage. Can't really tell, though.
Keep it moving.
Yeah.
Here comes the problem floor again at the gate. That went back and forth for every department for a couple weeks.
It's 2:30 love.
2:30
here it
love.
is.
What can we say about
Here it
this?
is.
We don't have enough hours on the tape.
All right, so Dave, how many times did this sequence go through lighting?
I think we lit this one 6 times,
And
and each time we put different people on it, so it wasn't people that were frustrated and burned out on it.
Yeah, we redid it materials at least 3 times the foregrounds and the backgrounds.
I think we animated it 4 times at least.
At
Around
least.
4 times. And then it ended up being that short like chunk of 10 shots approximately.
Yeah, it was originally like a really long sequence.
Au reservoir, my darling.
Thanks for walking me home.
Thanks for carrying me up that hill.
Hey, Mike, didn't you have to redo all of Loretta's lip materials just so they would show up better and read?
Oh yeah,
Something
there
kinda
was
like a coconut?
she had an extra lip rig inside of her face, and there was sort of a misunderstanding right between animation and materials about what her lip actually was.
Mhm.
So we had to move that around. Once we saw the animation, we realized she was sort of hair-lipped, so we had to move her lipstick around a little bit so it looked like she actually still had a mouth.
Yeah, this is where the mailbox used to be before he got put inside Aunt Fan's house.
Right.
He was the boyfriend
his
of the
girlfriend,
lamppost.
This is one of the biggest effects, fluids shots here. This stuff took a long time, but man, it looks good now.
I love the fact that like he's not just like, oh look, there's a water salmon, we're touching it. He's like in that, man. He's splashing it everywhere. It looks great.
Yeah.
And all of the oil is translucent and refractive.
It's a great shot.
The door here is sort of one of the more complicated models in the sequence, and has some of the most elaborate materials in the entire movie. The guys that worked on this spent a lot of time working on every single gear, and it's a pretty heavy combination of hand-painted texture maps and our normal procedural approach.
And the animator who animated this did it all by hand, these gears turning, and pretty impressive. Thought he did a good job.
Yeah, originally we had a solution for automatically setting up the gears, but not for this door, just for gears in general. But it never really got used because they needed such fine control.
You remember this shot was supposed to be eyes only. You guys animated without really moving the guys at all, and they said, oh, no, I think we need to see him now.
The weight on that door feels great.
And the difference between coming into that door and there being nothing on the other side of it in the
Yeah.
other
Two
shot.
different sets, yeah.
Yeah, this was a pretty complicated set.
So back in Big Worlds, which we saw on the TV screen early in the film.
Yeah, like the same exact set that the TV show was shot in. It really is this set.
I love all the designs, all these drawings on these boards. They're beautiful.
This is strange. How come it just stops in the middle?
There's the mysterious oil stain.
Yeah.
Remember? He used to have.
So yeah, we're about to hit dominoes. This is by far the biggest effects sequence of the film. There was a tool written that allowed these little streams of dominoes to run. It's all procedural. It's not simulated, so you can scrub through it.
You had control over how they fell, how they rotated as they fell.
How much randomness there was, yeah.
And even the little pips, the white marks on each one of them are different randomly across the entire sequence.
Yep.
Except in one part.
Well, in the part that we're about to see,
And we paint fixed the one part.
where it pulls back to the giant picture of Big Weld, that was all based on art that was given to us by Art and Design,
Look at that.
and we projected that, and then procedurally applied the correct number of pips to every domino to make it
Remarkable.
To give the shading.
to give it the
yeah.
right shading.
That's great.
Rob,
So in that
Rob
shot, there's
Cavallari
double
did an amazing
nines.
job there.
Yeah.
Like Rodney and Cappy had no idea what they're getting into when they knocked that domino over.
You know it's bad when the Russian men's choir starts trying to...
Right, exactly. The Red Army Choir.
So this sequence actually was a little bit shorter in the beginning, and Chris liked it enough that he asked us effects to do a little bit more, especially of this surfing.
Yeah,
This-
the press on the waves are amazing.
I wish I had the numbers for the number of dominoes and the number of different layers that are going on, but I'm sure it's in the millions.
Yeah, the highest number you ever told me at one time was 5 million.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it went higher than that.
The constant back and forth between initially layout and effects at the beginning, and then layout and animation, and then animation taking it the rest of the way was incredible in that one particular area.
Yeah, I think all told that sequence took 6 months or more of constant back and
Back
forth.
and forth, yeah.
Sir, is this what you've been working on? This is why no one sees.
And then it was originally spec'd out to be even huger. But
You mean
I
the
think it's
gorilla and the
tight.
dragon?
Yeah, the
Yeah, the
gorilla and the
dragon.
dragon.
And the
that
volcano
gave us
that would
nightmares.
explode.
The gorilla with the burning hair.
Yeah. There's the whirlpool that turned into the volcano.
At one point, Rodney was supposed to ride a gigantic Big Weld head.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, we even had tests of that. And it came out of the water at like We had the dominoes as if they were refracting the head underwater. It was pretty nuts.
Or then even an element of all those dominoes that had to become an element of the set, as you can see them all in the background. There's just like millions of them back there.
Yeah, that's assembly again. Using what the instancer, which R&D gave us, which allowed us to efficiently place tens of thousands.
I'm sorry, Tim.
Go ahead.
This particular area was used at one point to explain exactly what happened to Big Weld.
But quit works just as good.
Is that what you did?
Why he went into seclusion and why Ratchet is where he is, and it was kind of a long, drawn-out explanation that wound up ultimately getting cut. He had all these three little assistants Ratchet did, and he used them to squeeze Big Weld out, and that was the original idea of how Big Weld became this loner working with the dominoes.
There's Robot City.
There it is.
There it is again.
And Conehead Big Weld. The refractions in the glass.
Yeah, we redid that shot, right, Jim? I think you did that. Didn't we have to redo that shot once the refraction
That was
showed up?
Mike Wally. Because of the refractions.
Yeah, well, actually, there was the Conehead refraction, and we fixed it, but then the shot changed, and then we didn't have time to fix it the second time.
Right.
So you ended up with a different Conehead than the original Conehead.
Yep.
So we never fixed it. Is what you're saying.
I think it looks better with the Conehead.
Yes.
So that rig, the steam coming out of the top, is just an extension of the steam coming out of Gasket's head, same rig.
Yeah, so here's our introduction to the dark chop shop, and this version of the chop shop is actually the darkest and scariest of all the ones when we go back to it later, which is actually, I think this is the director's favorite. He wanted to keep it always dark, and then the studio wanted it a little bit brighter during the fighting sequences.
The whole feel of this area, this whole sequence and everything around it just feels fantastic.
It's great. This environment is really a character.
The set dressing really made this too, with the chains and garbage.
The hanging body parts.
Yeah, really
hanging
great.
up.
See, that's what disappears from the later chop
Yeah.
shops is the body parts, because they thought it was too scary.
Those piles of garbage, I'm trying to remember exactly what assembly did. They're just
It's
basically
procedural.
a library of parts, right?
It's a library of, I don't know, maybe a dozen, all with the same material and then procedurally placed. And then a lot of the stuff actually on the conveyor belts is a combination of effects, doing rigid body simulations, and then animation,
And animation.
Yeah, we should
animating
about
a few key
half
parts.
and half.
Yeah. Basically anywhere where it didn't need to interact with the character was good for effects to go, but except where it's dropping out of the ceiling on him, that's actually all effects.
Coming up here, we see Fender finally getting in his skirt and high heels, and again, being asked to do a reference. One of the animators had purchased a pair of size 14 heels and requested that I run around in them, practically breaking my ankle, but you may get to see that on the...
You do that normally, though, don't you, man?
Yeah, so I was like, I already have this on tape. So.
Yeah, but
just
it
size
is, it is
12s.
on tape somewhere.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hopefully you don't see it, but...
We'll
I
make
got the
sure it
voice
gets on the
with the
DVD
name.
now. Don't worry.
Yeah, I didn't think the dress and makeup were necessary when you did it, but whatever.
Hi, Mom. Oh, I'm doing fine. How are you?
So this sequence went through a couple of changes from the original too. It's a little bit shorter and simpler, and than it was originally. I think it was a little bit darker.
One of the interesting things about this, well, kind of interesting, is that the pillow now that is behind Dad's head was never supposed to be a pillow. It was actually supposed to cut out an area in the chair that revealed like a screw, a nice design, which
Which
actually...
you can see in the earlier
sequence.
Yeah.
It's there, but then animation, animated to it, so it got changed into a pillow.
Yeah, we had to change the materials and make it look like it was supposed to be there.
Animation is like the irresponsible child.
Exactly.
I'm really sorry I let you down. No. You could...
Cordless phone, right?
Yeah, I was gonna point that
That
out.
was the quick solution to the...
He doesn't pull the antenna out, though, but he gets really good reception.
Well, he's made of metal.
Yeah, he's a robot, for God's sake.
Yeah, Dad.
It's up to you, son.
Your father loves you very much.
I know.
With our friends and family plan, you can talk to him 500 minutes a month, free nights and weekends.
note about Aunt Fan, with all her little trinkets and everything on her, she was kind of a pain to animate. If you look at all of her hair coils and things springing around and her earrings and everything, we had a procedure done that's called follow-through that lets us animate that really easily. It almost does it for us. And but they go in and interpenetrate, and it's a really pretty big mess. But
I remember a lot of shots we were like, damn, we forgot to turn follow-through on those hair coils. It's like you could never really tell if they were moving or not.
Hey, you want to talk about Piper's teeth, Mike?
Oh, geez, yeah. So Piper's teeth, right? She was supposed to have braces, so we had it nice and shiny, metallic, and kind of dark. And I guess a good 3/4 of the way through the movie, the director decided that that didn't quite make sense. He started asking us why her teeth weren't bright, and we had to remind him that he wanted braces, and that's what she had for the first half of the movie. So had to start making a lot of changes to lighten them up and make them look less metallic.
one thing that might be a surprise is like Bender now has all these coils on his head. When he originally jumped off of the conveyor belt, he landed in a dumpster full of garbage, and he stood up, and then he had this crazy girly hairdo. And that ended up being cut from the film, but we just kept the hair.
Is Steve Martino's name in Aunt Fan's back plate?
In the texture map on her little elevator dial on her back, it's the Smartino Elevator Company, which is an homage to our art director. She's got an elevator butt.
Then let's do it.
Come on, gang. Let's give
Where does the suitcase go?
Yeah. He threw it.
Nice.
Someone get a crane.
There's that shot again.
That's what you call an expensive shot, too.
We had to keep using it.
Yep.
And the road that he just drove up on actually is a road to nowhere. I
Yeah.
Look,
Yeah,
look
it's a dead
carefully
end.
to see that.
They drive off the end of it in the chase sequence at the end.
I wanted to say at some point, too, that not only Rodney, but Big Weld and Cappy both, at the same point in production, got a kind of an upgrade, if you will, of their facial performance, so that we bent the metal around more, and you can see that in a lot of the Big Weld shots in the sequence.
Why are those bots white?
Yeah, that's probably a crowd bot or a cheap bot
those are
problem.
some Frankenbots in the step cycle.
Because we didn't have enough time to finish it in materials, Dave, to answer your question.
Yeah,
That's
no,
why
these
they're
were done
white.
like way early too. That
Yeah.
was stuff
Yeah.
we wanted to go back and change, but never had time.
We definitely improved those as time went on.
Here's a case, too, where animation would do like the
See the
front
bolts?
row.
Oh, yeah, there
or
they
so.
go. The
Right.
pants dropping bot's got two little nuts tied to
Yeah.
the bottom of his underwear there.
Jeez.
The effects was responsible, though, for the majority of this crowd here, especially in this shot.
And on the pieces of paper that go flying here, we texture mapped on the actual timesheets for Blue Sky employees. There they are.
This was actually the first sequence that came through to animation.
That's right.
That was the first shot final right there.
I'll come right to the point. What happened? Run out of
Yeah, we actually had to go back and retrofit a lot of the lighting on Ratchet for this stuff because when we did it originally, he wasn't near as shiny as he ended up being later. So we had to kind of bring this stuff back into the same world so it didn't look too weirdly different.
Same time, too, we animated a scratch for this
Yeah,
whole
we had it
sequence.
scratch, so we actually, Greg Kinnear had to go in and post dub some of this and try to get it to fit our animation, which is reverse of what we usually do.
Some of these shots, Jim, have the example you were talking about before of the simpler Big Weld facial rig, right?
That's right. Actually, a lot of these shots didn't get changed, so you can see, kind of the contrast.
In layout, this particular section of how Big Weld and Ratchet interact and what happens to Rodney and Cappy went through many different versions, all of which needed to be retrofitted back into existing shots and try to follow continuity and keep everybody oriented within the set. It was a tremendous challenge.
And if you watch real closely, you'll see Sidbot again in the crowd of people that gather in the doorway, except this time he's a high-end Sidbot.
Yeah, if you focus in that area in the door, that's where he keeps popping his head up in almost every shot that you see those guys. The sequence coming up was the whole chase sequence, which to me I felt was more, even more insane than 130 Express with all of the things that we added to it and how complex it actually ended up being by the time it was finished.
Right.
This is also the one that has all the cars. They look like little teeny tiny ants, but
it's really amazing sense of scale when you take it all in and see the cars and everything.
There's a tremendous amount of previs animation that went on before it ever even went through any layout phase, which was really informative. It actually we wound up really just using everything that animation did, turning them right into the shots and sending them on through the pipeline. Animation contributed everything to this chase sequence.
We did have a lot of Frankenbot crowds, though, for just about all the people. They're here done by effects.
You guys are so embarrassing. Oh, that's Rodney. He's in some kind of trouble.
I always thought this shot coming up with the magnet trucks, it always reminded me of Tron with the recognizer ships that go flying over camera. These guys, when the three of them come by. There's always something very Tron about it to me. There you go.
That shot was actually an afterthought to have the magnet trucks actually drive around the car like that. And it's pretty powerful.
Puts them in the depth of the danger.
Yeah.
This is a shot where they actually drive off the edge, but we cheated it so they floated in the air, and it looked like they were still on the land.
And here they are going down that same road, right? They're about to drop off.
Like, just off camera is nothing, which is right there.
So a little homage or flashback to 1:30 Express again here.
Yeah, we ended up using a different technique. Things were moving so much faster in this sequence.
Whoa.
We had to tweak our work a little bit.
Yeah, this sequence is pretty insane on every single level. Like, all the things that every single department had to do in order to make it come together was just amazing.
Even as it came through into rendering, we had entire meetings based around just going through each shot and trying to make sure that every building was in place and had materials and that all the background vehicles were in place and being animated properly.
And I think in actuality, some of the motion through the set is actually back and forth because there's not enough actual roadway, so we had to flip the light sometime to make it seem like they're always going the same direction to kind of make it feel like they're going forward.
Previs and mostly previs and then layout did a lot of revamping over the exact same stretch of roads, and then it was obviously it was lighting and certainly assembly's job to make it look like they were all continuous and on the same stretch.
Remember how many conversations we had about Fender's underwear?
Right. We never ended up
kind
painting
they
it.
should be.
Yeah.
We were actually in the paint department. We were supposed to paint like a full set of bloomers on there or whatever, and it actually never ended up happening.
And you've got a very, for animation it's hard enough to animate one character, but now you've got like a linked chain of 5 or 6 of them between 2 vehicles, and it's just a lot of
on a
heavy,
wheel wire.
It's
pretty
a lot of constraints, a lot of work for the animators.
You guys did a tremendous job.
I always love all the shots of the chop shop from the outside. It's just so powerful.
Yeah, so iconic.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time on that materials, and then had no idea you guys were going to be animating all of the gears and chains on top of everything else that's going on, and we ended up having to go back and redo some of the materials so the stuff didn't travel.
Yeah, that's like a whole gearway all the way down. Just maybe about
Even the
300.
ceiling. Some shots you can see what the camera looks up. You can see the rotating gears.
Not that one, though.
Not that one.
Yep, there it is.
The chop shop.
What's really fun about the materials on the Battle Rusties, the costumes that they're about to put on here, is that when we started the movie, all of these lead characters were the first ones we worked on, and as we got better and better at making stuff look old and nasty and rusty, we always kind of wished that we could go back and make the lead characters look even better. So what was cool was when we had a chance to do the Battle Rusties here, we really went to town with the materials, with all of the attachments that they give themselves. So what you're really seeing is when these guys are dressed up is some of the earliest materials on the characters themselves, and then some of the best later work that we did strapped on top of them.
They want us to upgrade? Then let's upgrade.
As an animator and stuff, all these shots coming up were definitely like some of the most fun to work on. Like the huge, crazy fight scene where, thousands of guys versus thousands of guys. It was just so intense. And then inside the chop shop, like the most evil place in all of Robot City.
And so dense. There's so much going on there. Every shot has every department showing off.
Right. It was
every single one.
In contrast to Ice Age, which was a lot simpler, we really tried to pushed ourselves all to the limit here.
I mean, honestly, when we first saw the storyboards for this final fight, I think, I know my group was, I think most of us were just assuming that we'd never be able to pull it off.
Right, especially because it kept being pushed back towards the end of the production schedule.
Yeah,
We're
It's
like, well, how much time?
continuously changing too. Just new ideas and revisions. Try and tighten it up.
Here's another section where almost every shot was hand placed with these minion guys that are Madame Gasket's henchmen essentially, and they're just all over the place. Hundreds of them. I think most was ever animated in one shot was about 400 minions.
That took a lot of work for us to be able to render that many because they have those little bits and pieces all over them.
This shot's a big one.
So each one of them represents on its own a couple hundred pieces of geometry.
There was another shot where after she says count these, instead of cutting to the sweepers, we used to cut to like hundreds more minions up in the rafters, which went away.
This one minion shot coming up from really far away was done by effects, however. It's the high camera shot.
Mode will ever see.
This one.
Yeah.
That's enough for effects.
That's a lot of bots.
We give up on those.
Yeah.
Beautiful
This
lighting.
here, though, with Piper and all of the Rusties coming back to help, or not the Rusties, the outmodes, was all hand animated as well. Just file after file just packed in there.
You can see
there's
the
probably
bum
around-
knee bot.
Yeah,
Here he comes.
There's the
There
bum
he
knee bot.
is. It's his bum.
But eventually we just started to put, the stick or the staffs in the back to make people think that there's a bunch of guys back there.
Here's our Braveheart shots
Yeah,
coming up here.
all this stuff is all hand done except for the minions were done by effects in that shot.
Mm-hmm.
Here's our John Woo slow-mo.
Yeah. All of the fighting that you actually see take place, except for what the Rusties do and Rodney and all those guys, all those fights, no one was actually allowed to get hurt. That's a mandate by, we can't be too violent. So if you watch, nobody actually gets hurt except for what, the Rusties do to the minions.
There was a second chop shop actually built for this particular sequence for the scale, as opposed to the earlier chop shop sequences. This is a much larger. I think it's 3 times the size of the original chop shop.
These are some of the latest revisions to this sequence, too, that we went back and did. The whole
right. Cappy and
Piper situation.
This was really well done.
And then we hook it up back into an earlier section with Cappy on her skates.
Yeah, which is this shot coming up is one of the biggest
which is
hand
insane.
animated shots of all the fighting right there.
Say hello to my dimpled friend.
Here comes Dave.
Yeah, this is
Everybody's favorite time.
Yeah, we actually had one of our lighters that we tasked this stuff to. He watched tons of Britney Spears and music videos and stuff, and he kind of came up with a lot of these ideas himself, and it all ended up in the movie because the art director just loved it.
In this particular area, we were trying to explore different ways. Originally, it was just an entire kung fu sequence that was going on between the Watchbot or the Wonderbot and Madame Gasket, and we tried to explore different ways. Like this shot in particular, we tried.
Hood.
Yeah, we called back to Robin Hood to try and get some of the interesting cast shadows and things that made that look so great.
This is one of the coolest ideas I think they came up with.
These were fun. This is all rigid bodies bouncing off there.
Yeah.
And, we had a couple. I think there were 2 or 3 of us working on these. There's enough objects flying around to make it challenging.
Yeah.
We had to break them up into layers. You'll see interpenetrations if you go through step by step. But
that was a broken apart model rigged and animated.
That thing's incredible.
Conveyor belt going crazy and breaking apart.
Yeah.
I love this action on the Wonderbot here.
This is great.
Yeah.
And Gasket's face.
I love how he turns the handle and the screw loosens. It's very mechanical.
As long as it looks mechanical.
Just don't touch that screw.
That one shot was a particular challenge, tracking the blade down from the ceiling down to the ground, because the amount of time needed for the lines and the dialogue, and the amount of movement that was necessary. The chop shop was only so tall, and to squeeze it in, it actually goes right from the top of the chop shop all the way to the bottom, and it still wasn't really long enough.
That was awesome effects.
Yeah, that was hand animated, and then with nice.
That was actually the toned down version. It used to be like a nuclear
It
explosion.
was
at
huge.
first
Yeah.
times.
Yeah.
This is amazing.
They're okay.
Yeah, a lot of BG animation work went into that sequence. An unbelievably large amount. So
There was
credit
Tin
to
Man
those
there,
guys.
too, for a second.
Yeah.
It's all right, son. You can shine no matter what you...
Stop! Come on, Rodney!
Ratchet's dad was one of the first characters we worked on.
Wait a minute. There's one thing I need to do first.
Hey, the water tower moved again.
Yeah.
Honey, what are you doing
It's Rodney, honey.
Rodney?
Oh yeah, how difficult was this for you guys for Dad to take off his dishwasher?
Oh yeah, it's always just
like-
do it really fast.
It's like
right?
taking your underwear off without taking off your pants.
Yeah,
It's just
you
like,
gotta do it.
just one fell swoop. You gotta go for
You
it.
gotta do it in one frame.
You've done that too, haven't you, Matt?
Yep. All this crowd stuff again was all hand done, all hand placed by all the cycles and everything that all the
Hey,
BG
that green
animators
box
do.
guy again.
I gotta say too, the look of the daylight stuff here is really amazing. I really admire it.
Yeah, this was actually challenging to get the real bright daylight without blowing out too much, because you got metal characters in a metal environment. All the highlights reflect off of everything else, and if you're not careful, the highlights kind of get out of control very quickly. So we had to be very deliberate and controlled about what we were doing.
Yeah, and it didn't help that in materials, one of the things we did all the time throughout the whole movie to make stuff look old is use a process where we added a lot of wear to the top side of things to make it look like it was sun bleached or rained on or a little bit weathered. And so every one of these characters out here had a slightly chalkier, lighter upper side to them. So when lighting started hitting them with that bright light, it definitely blew out a little bit quicker than they were expecting.
Yeah, and also another big challenge was all these reflections in the glass here on the building behind them, because there wasn't really a city back there in a lot of the shots, and we had to just bring in kind of the default city and just hope that it looked okay, and then kind of just move it around as needed.
There's not much of a crowd in those reflections.
Yeah, right. Well,
Some
couldn't
of
get
them
that
though
in
we
there
actually
either.
ended up going back and putting the crowd in.
Yeah, we put
I don't
some
know if
in
it
a
made it to
lot.
render or not, but
Should point out that the mom, her hair turns gray.
Yeah, that's right. That's
Somewhere.
right. We had two different versions of Mom and Dad's materials so that they looked a little bit older.
I love the materials on Dad's horn. It was like really easy to get nice reflections and stuff on that.
Oh yeah, we the only difference there in that horn metal compared to almost everything else in the movie is that we upped the number of reflections that are happening. So all the way down into the horn, it continues to reflect itself.
Hey, that was Tim Nordquist, one of the editors, is the Tin Man.
Yeah.
He actually has a SAG card now just for that part.
there's a huge collaboration of trying to think of the dance moves for everybody and what the whole crowd should be doing and how to get all this stuff together that went on through animation for a really long
We
time.
had two members of Stomp come to the studio for a day, and they worked with the animators trying to solve some of the choreography issues in this sequence. We got a lot of good stuff out of that.
What did the Blue Man Group end up doing?
A lot of the music for
I
the
think
movie.
they
Some
did
of the layer of the
soundtrack.
background soundtrack.
Yeah, a lot of these, the way I remember it, were just simple
I love that.
animation
I love it.
tests, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This
So
shot
the-
here was absolutely crazy to get all those
Yeah.
band members
Yeah.
in sync, on step, on 5 different steps. It was seriously a humongous headache.
Yeah, that was a huge one.
And so in these backgrounds, they're probably on average seeing about 400 or so guys, but this actual crowd ends up being around 800 to 900 people.
And we had to bring MimeBot back after 060, and what the animator did with that. It's a real crowd pleaser.
From the train station.
Yeah, the old crowd pleaser.
Yeah.
Yes, this one of the biggest shots coming up at the end is probably the biggest character count in the whole movie. It had like almost all 900 people in it, and that was over 55 files, I think, to make that whole thing work.
Also had to reprise the breakdancing Wonderbot.
Right.
Thanks for watching. This is Tim.
If you enjoyed our commentary, this is Mike.
This is Kevin saying goodbye. Thanks for watching the film.
On behalf of Layout and Blue Sky, thank you. And this is Rob saying goodbye.
This is Jim Bresnahan signing off.
This is Matt Simmons wanting to thank all the hard work of the whole entire studio. Signing off.
And this is Dave Esnott, and I just want to say thanks for suffering through our commentary.
Definitely.
You're good enough. When you're out on your own and you're feeling all alone, just keep hanging on. 'Cause it don't matter what you're made of. Believe in yourself and keep your head up, yeah. Don't you know that you can shine, 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 and together we will shine, shine, shine. Be strong and you will shine, 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 shine on, shine on. Sometimes life isn't fair. Seems like nobody cares about you anymore. Well, as hard as it seems, nothing's out of reach, all impossible, yeah. 'Cause it don't matter what you're made of. Believe in yourself and keep your head up. Don't you know that you can shine, 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 and together we will shine, shine, shine. Be strong and you will shine, shine, shine. Oh, shine on, shine. Wow, just take the time to free your mind. It's bona fide to move your body, natural high. Can you feel the vibe? Get on the rise, move your hips from side to side. Whoa, whoa. Cause the way your energy is affecting me, yeah. Get on down, don't get on down, don't get on down.
I see you hopping out to make a move. Hold up in your room. Don't want the rough, just the smooth. Well, baby, see me. I don't wanna miss a beat. See life pass by without me. So I keep my eyes wide open, keep them open, baby. Can't waste my time, do what I need to feel alright. I find a way to change, don't wanna be uptight. No matter what I'm made of, know that I can shine. 'Cause it's been so long since I have shined. So I'm gonna learn to fly. I'm gonna touch the sky. I will not compromise. Don't want to hide on my life. I'll take the low with the high. I want to feel alive. I'm going to try. Don't want to hide on my life. I see you always stuck in your groove, always in the same mood, never trying to improve. Well, baby,